Let me ask you something. What do you do when the one person who was supposed to protect you is the same person who wanted you dead? Samantha Dean knew what that felt like. Except she never saw it coming. She was 29 years old. She was 6 months pregnant with a daughter she had already picked a name for. She had spent her entire career sitting beside people who had been hurt, people who had been broken by violence, and helping them find their way through it. She was a victim services coordinator. That was her job. That was her life. She walked into the worst moments people ever went through and she stayed. And then one February morning in 2015, in a quiet parking lot in Bastrop County, Texas, someone found Samantha slumped over in her car, shot multiple times. No pulse, no help coming. The person who arranged that, the person who paid to have it done, it was the father of the baby she was carrying. This is the story of Samantha Dean, and I am going to take you through every single piece of it. The life she built, the relationship that turned on her, the cover-up they thought was airtight, and the moment it all came apart. Stay with me, because this one is going to stay with you. Real quick, if you are new here, welcome to Cases Decoded. Hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell so you never miss when we drop. And drop a comment right now. Tell me where you are watching from and what time is it over there right now. I want to see where in the world my people are. It was the early morning hours of February 4th, 2015. A Bastrop County deputy was running a routine patrol near State Highway 71. The roads were quiet. Most people were still asleep. And then he noticed something off. A car sitting at the far edge of a mostly empty parking lot near a closed business. The driver's door was hanging wide open. At that hour, in that kind of silence, it stood out. The deputy pulled closer to take a look. And that is when he saw her. A woman, slumped across into the passenger seat. She was not moving. He got out. He got closer. And it became immediately clear that she had been shot multiple times. The victim was identified as Samantha Elizabeth Dean, 29 years old, a victim services coordinator for the Kyle Police Department in Texas. And she was 6 months pregnant with a daughter she had already named Malene, but who she called Maddie. Investigators arrived and started processing the scene. And almost immediately, something felt off about it. There was cash inside the vehicle, around $100 just sitting there. Nothing had been taken. There were no signs of a fight outside the car. But inside the car, they found a large amount of blood pooled near the center console. That told them something important. Samantha had likely been shot while she was sitting in the driver's seat. And after the shooting, her body had been moved across to the passenger side. Somebody put her there. There were no shell casings on the ground. No fingerprints. Nothing that pointed clearly to a suspect. But the way the scene looked, the isolated location, the strange arrangement, the fact that nothing had been stolen, told investigators one thing right away. This was not random. This was not a robbery. Someone had put thought into this. And somewhere in Samantha's life, the answer was waiting. You cannot understand what happened to Samantha without understanding who she was. Because when you know her story, what was done to her hits even harder. Samantha Elizabeth Dean was born on May 12, 1985, in Nuremberg, Germany. Her father was in the military, so the family moved the way military families do, from place to place, base to base. Fort Sill in Oklahoma in the early 1990s. Fort Drum in New York after that. And then eventually San Antonio, Texas, where Samantha grew up and became the person people would remember her as. Friends and family described her as energetic and full of life. At Judson High School, she played varsity tennis. She was determined. She was caring. She made the kind of friends that stick around for decades. She graduated in 2003 and enrolled at the University of Texas at San Antonio. She had a plan. She had direction. And then life threw something at her that most people do not survive with their spirit intact. During her time in college, Samantha was diagnosed with sarcoma cancer in her elbow. She went through radiation. She went through chemotherapy. She had surgeries. And through all of it, through every hard day and every hard treatment, she kept going to class. She refused to fall behind. She graduated on time with degrees in liberal arts and public policy. Think about that for a moment. Fighting cancer with one hand and building her future with the other. That experience changed what she wanted to do with her life. Samantha had always dreamed of becoming a police officer. But the treatments left a disability that made that path impossible. So instead of walking away from the idea of service, she found another way in. In 2007, she enrolled at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City and earned a master's degree in forensic psychology. She then began volunteering as a victim advocate for the Austin Police Department. And by the early 2010s, she had a full-time position as victim services coordinator at the Kyle Police Department, where she became a trusted, beloved part of the team. Samantha Dean knew what it meant to fight through something that tried to take you down. And she spent every working day making sure other people did not have to face that fight alone. That was who she was. Around 2008, while she was living in the Austin area and volunteering with the Austin Police Department, Samantha met a man named Vauntry Clark. He was 25 years old at the time. The two of them got to know each other, and over time, a relationship formed between them. In 2012, Vauntry graduated from the police academy and became an officer with the Austin Police Department. On paper, they looked like two people walking similar paths, both in public service, both in law enforcement. But by 2014, things were about to get complicated. In August of 2014, Samantha found out she was pregnant. Vauntry Clark was the father. People who were close to Samantha say she was genuinely happy about it. She had already chosen a name for her daughter, Melene, but she called her Maddie. She was already in love with this little girl before she was even born. For Samantha, this felt like a new chapter, something she had been working toward her whole life. But Vauntry did not feel the same way. According to reports, he pressured Samantha to end the pregnancy. She said no, and that refusal cracked something open between them. The relationship became strained. And as Samantha got further along in her pregnancy, the tension kept building. She started opening up to people at work, co-workers at the Kyle Police Department, telling them that things had changed, that Vauntry's behavior had shifted after she got pregnant, and that she was worried. By January of 2015, Samantha was in her final trimester. She was still going to work every day. She was still planning for Maddie's arrival. From the outside, it looked like a woman pressing forward through a difficult personal situation. But something was already happening in the background that Samantha did not know about. Someone was making plans. From the moment detectives arrived at that parking lot in Bastrop County, they were looking at a scene that had been dressed up to tell a specific story. Marijuana scattered across the floorboard of Samantha's car. An isolated location. The middle of the night. Everything about it was pointing in one direction. A drug deal that went wrong. But the evidence kept pushing back against that story. Samantha Dean was a victim services coordinator for a police department. There was nothing in her life, her record, her daily routine, or her relationships that suggested any connection to drugs. The cash left untouched in the car killed the robbery angle completely. The autopsy confirmed she had been shot 3 times with a small caliber weapon. And the blood near the center console confirmed what investigators suspected. She had been shot in the driver's seat, and then physically moved to the passenger side after. That detail matters. That means whoever pulled the trigger was close. Inside the vehicle or leaning in through the window. Someone Samantha was not afraid of. Someone she let get that close. Investigators pulled her phone records, and what they found changed everything. In the hours before Samantha's death, a message had been sent from her phone to an unregistered prepaid burner phone. The message looked like it was setting up a meeting at the location where her body was later found. But investigators did not believe Samantha sent that message. They believed someone else had her phone. Someone who used it to build the scene. To make it look like she had gone there to meet someone shady. To point the investigation in the wrong direction from the start. The staging was deliberate. The cover-up was calculated. But the problem with a calculated plan is that it leaves tracks. And investigators were just getting started. As investigators kept pulling on threads, one name kept coming up. Vauntry Clark, the father of Samantha's unborn child, an active-duty Austin Police Department officer. and a man whose relationship with Samantha had become something far darker than most people around them had realized. Investigators learned that Samantha had plans to pursue child support once Maddie was born, and according to witnesses who would later speak with detectives, Vauntry saw that as a serious threat to him, financially and professionally. Then the investigators found something that nobody expected. They started tracing the burner phones tied to the crime, and those phones led them to a man in Vauntry's circle named Kevin Watson. As they dug further into the communication between Watson and Clark, they found that the two men had not been using regular calls or text messages to talk about the plan. They had been using voice chat on a PlayStation gaming network. Let that land for a second. They believed that chatting through an online gaming platform would keep them off law enforcement's radar, that it was a blind spot nobody would think to check. It was not. Investigators found it. They pulled it. And what it showed them made clear that this was not a crime that happened in a moment of anger or impulse. This was coordinated. This was discussed. This was organized. They were not looking at one suspect anymore. They were looking at a conspiracy. In June of 2015, roughly 5 months after Samantha was killed, a man named Aaron Williams walked into a police interview room and sat down with detectives. Williams had connections to Kevin Watson, and what he was about to tell investigators was the clearest picture yet of how this murder had been set up. Williams told detectives that Watson had talked to him about the killing. Watson had told him that Vauntry Clark had been looking for someone willing to carry out the murder of Samantha and her unborn child. The reason, plain and cold, was that Vauntry did not want to pay child support for a baby he never wanted. The price that had been agreed upon for the lives of Samantha and Maddie was $5,000. $5,000. Williams told investigators that Kevin Watson and another man, Freddie Lee Smith, had carried out the actual shooting, and he said that Vauntry Clark himself had been in the car with Samantha that night, that he had driven her there, that he had been the one who put her in that parking lot. The marijuana on the floorboard, the burner phone, the remote location, all of it had been staged on purpose to make Samantha look like she had gone to meet a drug contact, to give investigators a false trail to follow while the real killers walked away. By the time Williams came forward, Kevin Watson was already sitting in the Harris County Jail on drug charges. His girlfriend, Kyla Fisk, had already been arrested for tampering with evidence, and not long after that conversation with Williams, Freddie Lee Smith was arrested and charged with capital murder. The walls were closing in, and Vauntry Clark could feel it. On July 17, 2015, Vauntry Clark got on a plane. He flew to Bali, Indonesia. He did not tell his supervisors at the Austin Police Department. He did not get international travel clearance. He just went. When the department could not reach him, he was classified as absent without leave. Eventually, he was fired. His attorney would later argue that Vauntry had not been trying to run, that he booked the trip under his real name, used his own passport, and bought a round-trip ticket. Maybe so, but investigators had already been building their case before he ever left the country. It did not matter where Vauntry went. The FBI was already involved, and they had been working with Indonesian authorities to track him down. Vauntry Clark was taken into custody overseas. Now, the United States does not have a formal extradition treaty with Indonesia, but federal officials were still able to get him detained and arrange for his return. In September of 2015, Vauntry Clark was brought back to Bastrop County. He was charged with capital murder. He pleaded not guilty, and the following month, a grand jury formally indicted him for the deaths of Samantha Dean and her unborn daughter, Malene. The man who thought he could disappear on the other side of the world was now going to have to stand in a Texas courtroom and answer for what he did. As the investigation came fully together, the exact events of the night of February 3rd into February 4th became clear. Vauntry Clark had spent part of that evening with Samantha. At some point, he told her they needed to make a quick stop so he could pull cash from an ATM inside a gas station. He went inside. While he was in there, investigators believe he used Samantha's own phone to send the message to the burner, the message that would later look like she had set up a meeting with someone connected to a drug deal. After the gas station, Samantha drove to the parking lot in Bastrop County. Kevin Watson, who later agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced charge, described what happened next. He told investigators that Freddie Lee Smith approached the vehicle, climbed into the back seat, and opened fire. Samantha was shot in the head. Watson also told investigators that Vauntry Clark then picked up the gun and fired an additional shot. The plan had been made in advance. The money had been promised. $5,000, split between Kevin Watson and Freddie Lee Smith, for the lives of a 29-year-old woman and her unborn daughter. And after it was done, Samantha's body was moved to the passenger seat. The marijuana was placed on the floorboard, and the scene was left to be found. It almost worked. Almost. More than 4 years passed between the night Samantha was killed and the day Vauntry Clark stood in a courtroom and admitted what he had done. On December 16, 2019, Vauntry Clark entered a guilty plea to capital murder in the deaths of both Samantha Dean and her unborn daughter, Melleen. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Kevin Watson, the man who cooperated and helped prosecutors understand exactly how the night unfolded, received a 35-year prison sentence for his role. Freddie Lee Smith was tried separately. In 2022, he was convicted of murder and also sentenced to life in prison. All three men, counted for, behind bars. But accountability in a courtroom does not give back what was taken. And Samantha's family made sure the world heard exactly what that loss felt like. During the sentencing hearing, Samantha's family was given the chance to speak directly to the man who had orchestrated her death. Her sister, Taylor Dean, stood up and faced Vauntry Clark. She told him that he had stolen her favorite person, that Samantha had been her biggest cheerleader for 21.5 years. And then Taylor said something that made clear the full weight of what had been taken from them. She told him that he had stolen an innocent child, that he had stolen her niece. Taylor had talked to Maddie while Samantha was still pregnant. She had read to her. She had waited to feel her kick. That little girl was already part of the family before she ever drew a breath. And she was gone. Samantha's mother, Kimberly Dean, also spoke. She told the court what she had been in the middle of planning before it all happened. She had been about to go out and buy a car seat for her granddaughter. A car seat, just days before Samantha was killed. Plans that will never happen. A baby shower that never came. A little girl who was already loved and already named and never got to meet the people who were waiting for her. 2 lives. Gone. For $5,000. Samantha Dean spent her life in service to people who had been failed. She believed that when someone goes through something violent and terrifying and unfair, they deserve a person in their corner. Someone steady. Someone who shows up. She fought cancer and kept going to class. She lost the dream of becoming a police officer and found another way to serve. She got pregnant and chose that baby, chose Maddie with everything she had. Samantha was strong in the truest sense of that word. Not the kind of strong that gets loud. The kind that just keeps going. What was done to her was not a crime of passion. It was not an accident. It was a plan. Funded. Organized. Carried out by someone she trusted enough to sit in a car with late at night. And I want you to remember her for all the reasons that matter. The cancer she fought through, the people she helped, the daughter she loved before she could even hold her. Not just for the way her life ended. Samantha deserved more. Maddie deserved to be born. And neither of them will ever be forgotten. Not by the people who love them and not by anyone who sits with this story long enough to really feel it. May Samantha and Melleen rest in peace. If this story moved you, if you think Samantha's name deserves to be known by more people, share this video. That is the most powerful thing you can do right now. And drop a comment below. Tell me where you are watching from and what time it is over there right now. I read every single comment. Every one. If you have not already, hit the like button, subscribe to Cases Decoded, and ring that notification bell so you never miss when we drop a new case. We will see you on the next one.